Welcome back, guys. Today I'm going to get jumping right in to building my second gun box, gun safe, whatever you want to call it. So because of the configuration of my setup here, where I have screwed these down, these are all secured so they don't move. I actually can't cut that board on this bench saw because it's so wide it hits this. So we're going to get creative with this today. So I've used my miter saw, made 2 cuts, flipped it, did as good as I can. We'll clean that up with that bench saw once we cut this. And then we're going to get my jigsaw and just cut the difference. The dimensions become very easy for this one because we're using a 10-inch by 7-inch stencil. So that means that 25 inches long is what our flag is going to look like, and 1-inch wide strips, because 7 inches is how tall our union is. And so of course there's 7 stripes that equal out to the union, so 1 inch for each. Pretty easy right there. So now we got our strips, we have our 7 here, and we have our stencil that we're going to be using. We're using the 1776 for this particular one. Making one of these frames is really helpful if you're going to make a few of these. There's one piece of like laminated board that I got that's like shelving from Menards, a couple pieces of 1x, and these little metal brackets that are super cheap. You know, screwed it together, screwed it in there, screwed the brackets in. It really helps out, makes a big difference to make sure you're gonna get a nice straight edge. Like, that's one hard thing when you freehand it. You're trying to get as straight as you can. So this is helpful in that aspect. Anyways, because I'm doing a stain, I've done this before. This might not be your first time seeing it. Find this right here, find my stencil line. The purpose of this is to create an edge so that when I stain, that stain doesn't run and bleed over to from the union to the stripes. All right, so I doubled up. I not only put that chisel line in there, but I did use the tape. And I'm just gonna go ahead and use this foam brush. A lot of times I will use just a dirty old, not dirty, but an old rag. Like, usually my old rags are old shirts, but you know. So I'm gonna use this foam brush here. You want to go ahead and use caution. Even though you've protected your line with a chisel mark, tape, you want to try, obviously right there I was pretty careless and I shouldn't have been. You want to try and stain it exactly where you want and nowhere else anyways, just in case. Because obviously stain can permeate, it can soak in. It doesn't just coat the surface quite like paint. I got what will be our top, because this will be exposed on the top of our gun box. You'll see the very top of this. And now I'm gonna kind of just, even though it's taped together, trying to get some to run down the edges here. Gonna get glued together, so even if my stain doesn't get down in those cracks, it's gonna be fine. You won't even see it. All right, that's pretty straightforward. I'll be back. Although it wasn't a step that had to be done, I wanted to go ahead and stain on the sides of each one of these pieces of wood, just so that in between, along the cracks after it was glued together, you wouldn't see wood. I gotta say, the white stain has not shown through in the past very good for me, and I'm pretty pleased with it today. I'm surprised by it. I think that white turned out pretty decent. Obviously we don't need any glue on the last one. We're going to use a few of these other strips so that we can clamp down. We want this at least as long, so we're putting this board on top so that we can keep it flat. And we got these boards here. You see some of our glue seeping up. If you don't, I'm gonna lean you in here. So there's some glue seeping. We really don't want to leave that on the top surface of this, because then if it spreads and it dries, it's gonna be a problem. So we'll wipe that away. It should not come up anymore. If anything, glue might settle underneath on the bottom side, which we're not worried about as much. We'll put our last clamp on there too, just to, as I mentioned in the past, we don't want to clamp, like these are good and tight, clamped down, pressing them together, getting rid of any gaps, but we don't want to clamp it so tight that it buckles or bows or something. Alright, now, as I mentioned, laying that on the top, gonna do the best we can and put some weight on it. The intention of the weight is just to keep like one board from lifting a little bit on the other as they're pressed, so hopefully weight keeps them all pressed down. This isn't quite enough weight. I really don't have enough, but it'll do. All right, we left this stuff all night long. Haven't seen what it looks like. Hopefully we have a nice, good, solid piece here of a flag. And there we have it, one solid piece. So in theory, by me standing this up today, I got everything covered but what I'm gonna paint on the union there. In theory, by standing it up, I'm hoping to be able to get a nice, even, smooth spray over and not have any bleed underneath or puddling or pooling. See, even as it is, I see some paint running on this sign. So I'm gonna lay it flat. I sprayed. I didn't have to spray a ton. I'm gonna leave it lying exactly like that. I'm not gonna touch it for a while. We'll get back to that. All right, so our spray paint is drying. We need to move on. So we're gonna start with building the box to this gun box. This should be fairly straightforward, but as I have been trying to do things a little bit more detailed and in-depth lately, I could just have straight cuts and screw the box together, screw the pieces, but we're gonna cut our joints at a 45 to piece together our corners of this. I think it just give it a little bit more of a finished, better look. So that, and I'm gonna try to keep and use as much of this 2x4 as I possibly can. You know what, actually, I need to do this safely. I need to set up a sawhorse because I'm trying to hold this, so don't get reckless, because that's where people get hurt, where you think, well, it's just one little cut, and you try holding things and finagle it. You know what else is pretty funny? I haven't even plugged in my saw yet. I have another 45 and 45 obviously, so this one is ready to go. It's in great shape. So that's 28 inches. What I need to do next is cut the next one, and it's going to sit exactly like this. Yep, that's what I need. Alright, spray paint itself on the wood surface dries pretty fast. Maybe not on the stencil, on the plastic. So we're going to try to pull this up right now, and we don't need any extra spray paint just sitting hanging out that might run somewhere. And I hope it looks good. Let's see what we got. I'm pleased with that. So there's that. I haven't put this piece together, but I just want to show you, you know, now that we have not stained or done anything to this, the box that's going to be of this box, it just as is. when you do that 45, I mean, that's super easy. If you've got a miter saw, you know, just change the angle and do that. And I'm so used to not doing it, just making straight cuts. Hi, you're on camera.
This blue thing.
That's the end of the piece of 2x4.
Oh.
What yellow chair? You don't have a yellow chair. What are you talking about?
You just sit on the yellow chair.
Oh, in the back porch. Oh.
Yeah.
She wants to sit on the yellow chair, guys. All right, well, I'll be in there in just a minute. Just give me 1 minute. All right, so what I was saying is I'm so used to just making a straight cut, and you know, you can do that and then you join this piece to the end of that piece. But if you do 45s, like, we haven't stained this. I haven't done anything with my miter saw, which, you know, that's probably coming because I love using that tool. But this box, this is just 4 pieces of wood, and like, doesn't it look way more professional and just better, like a better finish to it? So all right, guys, so I figured you don't need to watch me just cut in pieces again. All I did was measure down and do the same exact thing I did a few minutes ago. So I cut this box much smaller. And as you see, that lid's gonna sit, that flag's gonna sit right on top. I think that's gonna be a lot better. I'm not going to, for once I'm not going to use my plunge router and put some kind of edge, because I think this box is going to look better, you know, sealed up and squared off. We have a square flag. Like, if I had some kind of edge lit underneath there, I think that would be awkward and weird. So I'm skipping a step that I use all the time, a go-to for me to make things look a little more finished. But that's that. I am going to stain it. And it takes care of one of my issues where I was talking about the length of that and stuff. I have to get a smaller hinge, so no big deal. That's actually makes my job a little simpler. So you may have been thrown off about what I was just talking about. I got a little confused. I don't know if I mismeasured the flag, if I mismeasured the box. Somehow I got off to where my box was much larger than my flag. You might have noticed that a few moments ago. I also have the hinge that was every bit the same length as the flag itself. And my backboard, it wasn't wide enough to cover the entire back of the box. So I was trying to figure out what was going to be best to do, and all signs ended up pointing to just cut the box down a little bit. So I only had to make cuts on one end of each board, made it smaller. Everything fits now. I have to go out and buy a smaller hinge. Not a big deal, something that's annoying, but we can fix it and move on. If not, I stain the back of the flag. I stain all sides of these. Stain both sides of this, so when it's inside the box, if you, whatever the back of it, whether it's sitting on the ground or whatever not, is going to be stained. And you notice I still have 4 different cans of stain up there. This is definitely one of my weak points, is visualizing, conceptualizing, and making determinations on style, on colors, on things like that. Do I go super dark? Do I go light? Do I go with like a black cherry or something that's almost black? The black cherry obviously is not black, it's almost red. The cognac has got a red tint to it. I end up going with black walnut. I think it darkens it, but it still looks like wood. I think it gives it a decent tone, decent finish. I stained, of course you see where I had more stain here and I'm running out over here, but I'm okay with that because the purpose for me staining the joints is just to, as in when we made the flag part of it, like, and I don't want to leave spots where you notice like it highlights, like there's some wood, there's some lumber, there's a 2x4 edge, like we know this is 2x4, but you know, you don't want to see down in the cracks. I mean, I'm not thrilled with the fact that some of these splinter spots are, you know, didn't stain real well. I used up every little bit of that remaining can, which, you know, is probably the one with the least amount in it. I probably should have used something that had more stain left, but okay, I'm okay with it. This is the one that I wanted color wise. So think about some of the stuff like splinters, you know, this is not a great side, so I want it on the bottom. That's going to be on the back of it, whether this box is used lying down or just sitting down like on a shelf or even mounted up on a wall. That would be the wall mount. You're not going to see it. Whereas this is going to be the top will be the side that the hinge that the door to this box opens. So think about some things like that. Drill some pilots. through, I'll put 2 one direction, so 2 going into this board. I'm gonna put 1 that way, just to really shore this up. Now I get those screws in to one side. So we've used wood glue and 3 screws for this corner. That's going nowhere. I want to be consistent, so the 2 screws are going to be on my long board. So I'm pulling that one out because it ended up pulling and separating my joint. We'll start with the top one now and see if we can get it to hold exactly where we want it. Let's see if we put one in over here to give us a little more stability, because this one keeps wanting to slide in that spot. It wants to slide this board down when we tighten the screw. So maybe if we put one in here, maybe that will solidify things and it won't want to move on us as we tighten it. Okay, that seems to be a little better. All right, all 4 of those corners are looking very nice. The flag's sitting on top of it, looks like. This is what our gun box is going to be looking like. Pretty happy with that. I think it looks pretty good. So of course the next thing is putting the bottom on it. We're gonna leave this. It's a little bit better. That has like a glue spot or something that happened there. Since this thing's either gonna be lying down like on a table or mounted on the wall, we're gonna put that side on the back just in case, so you see the better side. Even though I'm putting some foam padding in there, if you were to take the foam padding out, we want the inside of this to look a little nicer than the outside. So this one's pretty straightforward. Just gonna glue and screw this piece on. Better not risk it. I was tempted to not pre-drill, but you know what? It only takes one time for it to screw it up, doesn't it? Just pre-drill. Pre-drill the holes. Now I'm gonna get, I got 4 there. I'm gonna go ahead and do 4 in the corners. I want to remind you guys. Now I have to think about this. I realized that as I was getting ready, because I have a joint at each corner. So I'm gonna offset it. So I'm not gonna do it right in the corner, but I'm gonna do 2 in each corner. So there'll be a lot of screws in this, a lot of them. All right. That's the back. That's the inside. Pretty pleased with where we're at. All right, so we got our hinge on. I would have loved for this to be on the inside, but it just doesn't work. Not with the 1.5 inch gap with this being a 2x4. You know, I can't get, the hinge is gonna have to sit up here, and then down, like, you need some kind of mechanized hinge because it's gonna like spin and lock. Like, that wouldn't work. So either way, it opens and closes nice. Now let's get some gas pistons on there. Okay, so here are the parts to these gas pistons. The instructions are just here in picture for the angles you want it at. They're in millimeters. I think I want this door to open a little bit more than 90 degrees. You probably can't read those. It doesn't look like they're coming into focus, but so it's 250 millimeters. I think I was like 9 and 3, like 0.8 inches. So I put 9 and 3/4 inches is where I went to measure. Put a tiny little notch there. 10 millimeters in, which was 0.4 inches. So I did just under I think I did half an inch. And then it was 80 millimeters up the box, which was just under 3¼ inches. So I figure as long as I'm consistent with both sides, you know, I don't have to be exact for this. But yeah, so by design, that should end up having my box probably open up to like about here, a little more than a 90. And so I've got marked there, boom, boom. So that's what I'm gonna do now. These gas pistons were giving me problems from the start. I knew where I thought they needed to go. The mounting brackets were easy enough to put on, but then the piston itself wasn't long enough to reach. So I must have done something wrong when I was measuring. Well, I did figure out what that was. I was taking that measurement from the inside of the box, not the outside, where the lid would be. And then this happened. Okay guys, I'm very frustrated and disheartened right now. I've made one of these boxes before. Hopefully you've seen that video. If not, you can check it out. It was my first time through. I used these same exact pistons. I don't know if I didn't put enough glue or what, but sorting out, getting those gas pistons on there, and as I was closing it, you know, applies some pressure there, and it just plain broke. It didn't break, but the glue that held this together just came right off. It popped it apart. I don't know what it is with these ones today. They weren't lining up right, so I'm done working for today in just a matter of about 5 minutes. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. All right, bye.